Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is September the 12th, 2023. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good on the eve of my birthday. The vibes have been good, they've been solid. To be honest, up until this point, I haven't done any kind of like reminiscing on how my birth year has been up until this point. My 32, if you will. But no, it's been good. It's been nice and interesting. Ups and downs, if you will. Sadly, this is more interesting than the food I ate. I just had some pasta last night, the huge. But it was good. It was yummy. I definitely like now. I've noticed over the past like couple months, I get so hyped for like my dinner because I'm just not eating anything other than like a small little snack bag of chips. For the most part, I did graze on some peanuts though today, but man, I get so stoked for dinner. It's a big deal for me. But I realize I've always been a dinner guy. Breakfast is nice, but it fucks up my tummy, so I usually tend to just not want it until afternoon, usually, unless I want to spoil myself and deal with the consequences. Lunch has always just been such a okay, fine. If you find a nice deli, if you find a nice, what have you, and maybe you want to get your little McDonald's in the daytime, sure, sure, sure. But it's not my favorite meal. Probably number two. But dinner, whew, we love a good dinner. We love a good D up. But yeah, nothing to report so much, other than the pasta use. Let's see here, and I'm good. Like I said, it's just been a nice, solid ho hum day. We didn't work too hard. We got to, just do our thing, and that was nice. And I'm off for tomorrow. I decided to call off, so hopefully we'll get a little bit of an earlier episode, and that'd be nice. That'd be neat. But yeah, let's see here. I suppose I'm gonna do my little startup, and then we can get into some news, some happenings for this Tuesday. Ooh, crackle. Okie dokie. Let's start here. From CNN. More than 5,000 presumed dead in Libya after catastrophic flooding breaks dams and sweeps away homes. Sadly, we are starting off with another natural disaster. More than 5,000 people are presumed dead and 10,000 missing after heavy rains in northeastern Libya caused two dams to collapse, surging more water into already inundated areas. I also want to add, too, the initial reports came very hard and fast, around like 2000 rising when I initially heard the story. And then, as of today, they're at 5,000, and I'm assuming rising. So, obviously, very sad, very unfortunate. But at least 5,300 people are thought dead. Let's see, they confirmed this Tuesday. Let's see here, read a little bit further. Of those killed, at least 145 were Egyptian. And then in the eastern city of Derma, where it looks like that was like the brunt of the devastation, as many as 6,000 people remain missing. They reference a lot of the people. I don't want to get you guys bogged down in names here. But yeah, they said this shit hit. It hit really hard, and it broke down dams. It ran through bridges, and luckily, at least people have been, coming in terms of aid, worldwide. But still, no matter how much aid you get, it's still a lot to get through and go through and endure as people. I mean, it's so sad to hear stories of people who are living their lives one moment, and in the next moment, their whole families are gone. Now they're survivors trying to pick up the pieces of their life, and it's very just sad. Let's see here. There's something. I guess a little factoids here we can go through. The UN-backed Government of National Unity, or the GNU, led by Amuala Habib Diaby, Dibihibit, I got the name wrong, sorry, but sits in Tripoli in northwest Libya, while its eastern rival is controlled by Commander Khalifa Haftar and his Libyan National Army, the LNA, who support the Eastern Parliament led by Osama Hamad. Derma, which lies some 300 kilometers or 190 miles east of Benghazi, falls under the control of Haftar and his Eastern administration. So I say that because Libya is an African country that is in a lot of turmoil, something that we were kind of involved in a little bit of way, just in terms of taking out Gafdi. I'm pronouncing his name wrong as well, Gafdi. The Milwaukee's talking now. But essentially, kind of just we're talking now about the fallout of this kind of shit and how Libya is kind of split by this UN half and then this like Libyan National Army half, and where like a lot of where this devastation sits is on that LNA half. So that's kind of just the lay of the land, if you will. I did want to also move along and talk again about Morocco, the earthquake that had the very high death toll of about, what was it? I think I initially reported around 1,000 and rising. Now it's looking at least 2,900 people. But I did want to talk about just kind of, we were talking about aid in Libya. Something that's been kind of coming up in a lot of stories I've been listening to is that, and I read as well, is that a lot of countries were standing ready to give aid to Morocco. And the king of Morocco is like, okay, we'll get back to you on that. And so far, at least as of like today, a lot of people were saying, a lot of countries were like, hey, we are here, we're standing ready, and they're not like letting us in. They're not like giving us the green light. And then there are people on the ground, victims, saying, hey, excuse me, this whole earthquake's happened. There's aftershocks happening. I'm literally hearing cries for help, and then nothing. People are just fading away, and I haven't seen hide nor hair of aid. And then it's available in some parts of Morocco. It's happening. It's ongoing. So I think there's just been a little bit of what's going on here? Why not just immediately snap your fingers and say yes to this aid? And there's questions about like, oh well, from Morocco they're like, well, it's kind of a little bit of propaganda here. We just don't want to have like too many cooks in the kitchen. We only need so many people to do X or Y thing. We don't want to get confusion. But then from the outside, people are saying like, what is this, a political thing? You don't want to like feel indebted. Like what's going on? What's up? And that's a big question mark, and who knows if we're going to get an answer on that. So I did want to just kind of highlight those two things with the death toll and just, I guess, maybe the whole aid pause, freeze, fog. I don't know what you call it. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame that these natural disasters are happening. I don't know. It's icky. It's sad. It's icky's totally the wrong word. But it's hard to cover this kind of shit. But it is something that is happening in the world, and I do want to draw attention to it. I feel bad when I miss it. Like there was a fucking like typhoon in China, and last I saw, like 20 people died. But then I realized by the time I was ready to talk about it, like it was like a month ago. I was like, shit. Like, sometimes it just falls through cracks, and I feel fucking shitty about that. So I try to cover it when they happen. At least try to give you as much of the blow by blow big updates as I can. But yeah, let's go ahead and move along to another story. A little bit more African news from the BBC. Egypt angry as Ethiopia fills Nile Dam reservoir amid water row. I love how the BBC uses the word row. I've like kind of slowly incorporated that into my lingo vernacular, like, crisis, trouble, like, okay, yeah, a little row happening. But, I don't really think people are going to get that in the States. Anyway, Egypt has voiced anger after Ethiopia announced it had filled the reservoir at a highly controversial hydroelectric dam on the Blue Nile River. Ethiopia have been in a dispute with Egypt and Sudan over the mega project since the launch of 2011. Egypt relies on the Nile for nearly all of its water needs. Egypt's foreign ministry said Ethiopia was disregarding the interests of downstream countries. Ethiopia says the $4.2 billion dam will not cut their share of Nile water. So to me, I heard this and I immediately thought about the situation in like the Colorado River, where we are literally like, oh shit, like water is getting tough, it's getting scarce. Like we're having to deal with all this fucking, climate change shit. Water's getting more and more scarce, and everybody needs it. And you just start to see people almost like trying to divide it out, like knives out, and you see that happening in an international level. And that's why kind of was why I was drawn to really want to talk about this. And these three countries are all on the Nile, and I feel like Egypt's kind of barking the loudest because they're like, look, we stand the most to lose if this gets botched and we don't get the water we need. Like this is a noble endeavor. You guys are going to power your people, with this hydroelectric power. And that's really fucking cool and neat. But what about us? Also, Sudan is also involved in this. They are also on the Nile, but they aren't as loud of, a speaker in the situation right now because they are dealing with their own, conflict right now. We've been covering that pretty extensively. At least we're trying to. So yeah, Egypt's definitely barking. They're saying, yo, what the fuck is up? And, Ethiopia is like, no, we got this. I should say the name of the dam. It is Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD, which I love. I love that. It feels like very Metal Gear, the GERD. Like battle at the GERD. I don't know. Let's see. In a statement on Facebook, the Egyptian Foreign Ministry said Ethiopia's unilateral filling of the reservoir violated a declaration of principle signed by the three countries in 2015 and branded Ethiopia's action illegal. But Ethiopia is saying, like, look, this has been a long time coming. We are going to fulfill our requirements. We are not going to take too much water. Everything's going to be fine. But I don't know. I could see how this feels like a gamble. You know what I mean? So I'm interested to see if there's anything that's going to come out of this. If there is going to be any legal action or things of that nature. And if the dam itself is going to be successful. And, is this going to lead to a water crisis in the future? Just like I think about, the situation with the Colorado River in America. I'm sure this is happening in other places too, Man, either we're going to have a complete water world situation or like the exact opposite. I don't know what we're racing towards. And I'm sure we're going to meet in the middle and it's just going to be all bad and all kinds of miserable. But, who knows? Hopefully I'll be there to cover it. All right, we got more things to talk about, though. We have an update, and it's a good update. I come bearing gifts of good news, W's. All right, from the Associated Press. American researcher has been rescued from deep Turkish cave more than a week after he fell ill. So that's right. We are talking about Mark Dickey. He made it. Looks like we made it. All right. Researchers pulled an American research, or I'm sorry, my bad, run it back. Rescuers, maybe are researchers. Rescuers pulled an American researcher out of a Turkish cave early Tuesday, more than a week after he became seriously ill, 1,000 meters, more than 3,000 feet below its entrance. Teams from across Europe had rushed to Morka Cave in southern Turkey's Taurus Mountains to aid Mark Dickey, a 40-year-old experienced caver who became seriously ill on September 2nd with stomach bleeding. He was on an expedition to map the cave, which is the country's third deepest. So this is a vertical cave, as it has been described to me, and it made it very difficult given Dickey's situation. He couldn't really move. By the time they were able to get to him and give him some assistance, he was able to at least be up, and he was saying like, hey, I'm well enough to like move. I'm okay. I'm taking in food. I'm not vomiting. So these are good things, but I don't think I'm able to make this trek on my own. So they were kind of saying, okay, either we're going to have to wait potentially weeks to get him up on his own record, or we're going to try to do the stretcher route. We're gonna try to make some openings, make some things happen to get that to go, and that's what happened. So I was kind of following this before I, wound up, getting here, and they're like, oh, we got him like to a certain base camp, and he was higher up, and I was like, oh, okay, so they're making progress. It seems a lot faster than I expected. That's sweet. And then look, we are as of Tuesday, he made it out. It looks like they had like kind of set up a good just stretcher system. They were able to, do the things they needed to do to get the stretcher through and get him on. They stopped at like intervals. He was constantly monitored. They had also people during and post, like making sure that they're cleaning up after themselves too, which I liked that they noted that. So yeah, I mean, this is a very thorough, very like diligent operation, and luckily Dickey got through really cool, and it didn't take well, I mean, I guess, yeah, as of September 2nd, so I guess it did take weeks, but I mean, by the time I heard this, it seemed like there was days in between, so that's pretty cool. It's pretty wild. Also, something I started thinking about too on these things, as I wonder, and if my newsies or people audience can help me, who foots the bill for these things? Does like, especially because this is like multilateral. I mean, this is a guy from New York, so there's his people, like his little like team and shit was involved. There was obviously people in Turkey, all kinds of folk. So I wonder who like winds up footing the bill for these kind of things. Like, especially when it's just like one person or like a family or whatever, like, a little survivor thing. I don't know. I'm curious. Maybe I'll find the answer myself and I'll wind up talking about it later. All right, we have one more thing to talk about. And then I'll let you go. You can finish off your Tuesday. You know what I mean? I'm taking my last little break. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Ooh-wee. Okay. Our last one is from The Independent. LGBTQ dating app Grindr nearly loses half its staff after trying to force office return, according to report. Sorry about that. Yeah, but LGBTQ dating app Grindr has lost nearly half its staff after ending its remote work policy in an attempt to force workers back in person, according to reports. According to the Communications Workers of America, or CWA, Grindr announced on August 4th a return to office mandate that gave employees a 2-week period to decide between two options: relocate to a newly assigned hub city to work in person twice a week with their respective teams, or leave the company with severance. Some of the new hub cities included New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. As of 31st of August, the CWA estimated that 80 of Grindr's 178 workers left the company. The return to office mandate arrived 2 weeks after approximately 100 Grindr employees launched a union campaign to protect the staff amid widespread layoffs wreaking havoc throughout the tech industry and the wave of political attacks on LGBTQ identifying people. So essentially they're saying these you got to come to work. We're done with the work from home shit. It came as a counter to a union forming. Essentially, they're like accusing them of trying to bust them up this way. And Grindr's saying, no, that didn't happen. Oh, there's the burp I was waiting for. I'm sorry. Whew, I had to let that out. But Grindr's accusing them of simply like trying to sabotage this, trying to make this whole you have to come to the hub thing happen, when essentially working remotely was working perfectly fine. And this is something that I'm find myself kind of confused about, is where's the conversation at? from companies. Like, where do they want to push the propaganda? Because I hear some people saying like, no, work from home is actually fine. We actually love it. We love not having a brick and mortar. And then there's other waves of people saying like, no, working remotely is terrible. It's ruining productivity. It's killing businesses. We need to get back to brick and mortar. And I don't know what they want. I almost wonder if this is like a two-headed dragon situation. I don't know. But here it's being stated, alleged that Grindr is using this to potentially break up a union, which is obviously something that's like, boo, fuck you, what the fuck, ew, gross. But obviously, I hate this idea just because I personally am of the standing that working remotely is just way more efficient. It is something that is, maybe you can say, a silver lining from COVID. That, yeah, it's fucked up. And also, by the way, something I've not talked about, COVID's on the rise. It fucking sucks. Also, there's a new COVID booster. That's a thing. So, but COVID talk is fucking icky. I can say that. It's not fun to talk about. I don't enjoy it. That's not misinformation. But yeah, it's a thing. It's happening. And it's crazy that, like I said, you're trying to stifle that one potential like perk of this whole shit is that, hey, you can actually work from home. We've proven the concept. We've been sitting on this technology and not using it. And now they're like, but no, you got to come to these hubs. And I think this is whack for whatever reason they're doing it for. Also, I do think trying to break up a union sucks. And yeah, I don't know though if there's going to be any kind of like legal action here. I guess we'll see. But yeah. That's all I really have for today. That's the episode. Let's see. I got to shill. Yeah, I got to do that before I let you go. I have a Patreon. Patreon.com/Isaiah News. If you'd like to support the effort, support the podcast. I do shout you out on the top of the month. That's for all my newsies. I say your name. I plug a project you're on. A free way to hit me up is isaiahnews1@gmail.com. And then I'm on all the socials. You can find me or the podcast there. Please subscribe to the YouTube. That also helps a lot. And give me all the thumbs up. Max out all the stars, all of the rave reviews. Follow me on all of the things you listen to me on if you want to just keep up with the Joneses. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.